Laziness is a silent killer. It's not just killing your dreams. It's assassinating your potential, murdering your future, and burying your success 6 feet under. Picture yourself 10 years from now. Are you living the life you've always dreamed of? Or are you sitting on that same couch watching the same TV shows, making the same excuses? The choice, my friends, is yours to make right now. You see, success isn't something that falls into your lap while you're taking a nap. It's not delivered to your doorstep like a pizza. Success is earned. It's fought for. It's wrestled from the jaws of mediocrity with blood, sweat, and tears. Laziness makes you believe that success is too hard, too far away, or meant for someone else. It whispers sweet nothings in your ear, telling you to take it easy and why bother. Well, I'm here to tell you why you should bother, because your life depends on it. Let me share a little secret with you. The most successful people in this world aren't necessarily the smartest, the most talented, or the luckiest. No, they're the ones who decided to get off their behinds and do something with their lives. They're the ones who said no to laziness and yes to hard work. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but I'm tired. I work all day. I deserve some rest. And you're right, you do deserve rest, but there's a big difference between recharging your batteries and letting them run completely dry. Laziness isn't rest, it's rust. It's the corrosion of your ambitions, the decay of your dreams. Every time you choose laziness over action, you're voting for a future you don't want. Every time you hit that snooze button, you're saying no to your goals. Every time you choose the easy way out, you're choosing a hard life in the long run. But it doesn't have to be this way. You have the power to change. You have the ability to transform your life, starting right here, right now. And it all begins with a simple decision, the decision to act. Let me tell you about a young man I once knew. We will call him Tom. Tom was bright, had a good education, and came from a loving family. He had all the ingredients for success. But Tom had a problem. He was lazy. He always looked for the easy way out, the shortcut, the quick fix. Tom would start projects but never finish them. He'd make grand plans but never follow through. He was always going to do something great, but that something never seemed to happen. Years passed, and while his friends were climbing the ladder of success, Tom was still on the ground floor, wondering why the elevator wasn't working. One day, Tom woke up and realized he was 40 years old. He had a job he hated, a mountain of debt, and a life full of regrets. That's when it hit him like a ton of bricks. Laziness had stolen his future. Now, I'm not telling you this story to depress you. I'm telling you this because I want you to avoid Tom's fate. I want you to recognize the danger of laziness before it's too late. Laziness is like a credit card. It's fun to use now, but the bill always comes due. The interest on laziness is astronomical. It compounds daily, hourly, by the minute. Before you know it, you're drowning in a sea of missed opportunities and unfulfilled potential. Just as laziness can compound negatively, action can compound positively. Every step you take towards your goals, no matter how small, builds momentum. Every time you choose action over inaction, you're investing in your future self. Imagine if you read just 10 pages of a good book every day. In a year, you'd have read 3,650 pages. That's about 12 books. Think about how much knowledge you'd gain, how much wisdom you'd acquire, how much closer you'd be to your goals. Or let's say you decide to save just $5 a day. In a year, you'd have $18, $25. In 10 years, with compound interest, you could have over $23,000. That's a nice chunk of change, and it all started with just $5 a day. The point is, small actions taken consistently can lead to massive results. But here's the catch. You have to start, you have to overcome that initial inertia, you have to say no to laziness and yes to action. Now I know it's not easy. Laziness is comfortable. It's familiar. It doesn't demand anything from you. But that's precisely why it's so dangerous. It lulls you into a false sense of security while robbing you of your dream. So how do we fight laziness? How do we kick this dream-killing habit to the curb? Well, let me give you a few strategies that have worked for me and countless others. First, start your day right. The way you start your morning sets the tone for the entire day. Don't hit that snooze button. When the alarm goes off, get up. Make your bed. It might seem small, but it's your first victory of the day. It sets a precedent of action over laziness. Second, set clear, specific goals. Laziness thrives in ambiguity. When you don't know what you're working towards, it's easy to do nothing. But when you have clear, specific goals, you have a target to aim for. You have a reason to get moving. Third, break big tasks into smaller, manageable chunks. Laziness often comes from feeling overwhelmed. When a task seems too big, we procrastinate. But if you break it down into smaller steps, it becomes less daunting. You can tackle it one piece at a time. Fourth, create a routine and stick to it. Routine is the enemy of laziness. When you have a set schedule, you don't have to rely on motivation or willpower. You just do what needs to be done because it's part of your routine. Surround yourself with action takers. Rohn, and yes, I'm quoting myself here, once said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." If you hang around lazy people, guess what? You'll become lazy too. But if you surround yourself with go-getters, their energy will rub off on you. 6, celebrate your victories no matter how small. Did you make that phone call you've been putting off? Celebrate it. Did you finish that report ahead of schedule? Give yourself a pat on the back. Recognizing your progress, no matter how small, motivates you to keep going. 7th, learn to love the process, not just the result. Laziness often comes from focusing too much on the end goal and not enjoying the journey. But success is not a destination. It's a way of life. Learn to love the daily grind, the small improvements, the gradual progress. 8th, develop a sense of urgency. Realize that time is your most precious resource and you're not getting any more of it. Every minute you waste is gone forever. When you truly understand this, you'll be less likely to squander your time on lazy pursuits. 9th, face your fears. Often what we perceive as laziness is actually fear in disguise. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of the unknown. Recognize these fears for what they are and face them head on. Remember, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action in the face of fear. And 10th, forgive yourself, but don't let yourself off the hook. We all have lazy moments. We all slip up. The key is not to let these moments define you. Forgive yourself, learn from the experience, and get back on track. Fighting laziness isn't about working yourself to the bone. It's not about burning yourself out. It's about finding that sweet spot between comfort and growth. It's about pushing yourself just enough to make progress, but not so much that you break. Think of it like working out. If you never push yourself, you'll never get stronger. But if you push too hard, you'll injure yourself. The key is to find that optimal level of challenge, the place where growth happens. Laziness isn't just about physical inaction. It can show up in many forms. There's mental laziness, where we refuse to think deeply about problems. There's emotional laziness, where we avoid dealing with our feelings. There's even spiritual laziness, where we neglect our inner growth. To truly overcome laziness, we need to address all these areas. We need to challenge ourselves, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually as well. Let me give you an example. Say you're in a job you don't like. Physical laziness might keep you from looking for a new job. Mental laziness might keep you from learning new skills. Emotional laziness might keep you from addressing your fear of change. And spiritual laziness might keep you from examining what you truly want out of life. See how it all connects? That's why fighting laziness is so crucial. It's not just about being more productive, it's about becoming the best version of yourself. Now, I want to address something that often comes up when we talk about laziness. Some people say, but what about relaxation? What about downtime? Aren't those important too? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Rest and relaxation are crucial for our well-being. But here's the difference. Relaxation recharges you. Laziness drains you. Relaxation is intentional. Laziness is passive. Relaxation prepares you for action. Laziness prevents action. The key is to make your downtime count. When you relax, do it fully. Be present. Enjoy it. But when it's time to work, give it your all. Don't blur the lines between work and rest. Be fully engaged in whatever you're doing. The laziness of low expectations. This is when we set the bar so low for ourselves that we barely have to try. It's when we say things like, that's good enough, or it doesn't have to be perfect. Now, don't get me wrong. Perfectionism can be just as paralyzing as laziness. But there's a big difference between doing your best and barely trying. The laziness of low expectations robs you of your potential. It keeps you stuck in mediocrity. Instead, challenge yourself to raise your standards. Expect more from yourself. Not to the point of perfectionism, but to the point of excellence. Remember, the gap between average and exceptional isn't as wide as you might think. Often, it's just a matter of putting in that extra 10 effort. Let me share another story with you. There was once a young woman named Sarah. Sarah was talented, smart, and had big dreams, but she had fallen into the trap of laziness. She always had an excuse for why she couldn't pursue her goals. I'm too tired, she'd say. I don't have enough time, was another favorite. One day, Sarah met an old friend who had become incredibly successful. Curious, Sarah asked her friend, "How did you do it? How did you achieve so much?" Her friend smiled and said, "Sarah, the difference between us isn't talent or opportunity. It's what we do with our 24 hours. While you're making excuses, I'm making progress. While you're saying I can't, I'm figuring out how I can." It's as simple as that. That conversation was a wake-up call for Sarah. She realized that her laziness wasn't just affecting her career. It was affecting every aspect of her life. Her relationships were suffering because she was too lazy to put in the effort. Her health was declining because she was too lazy to exercise and eat right. Her mind was stagnating because she was too lazy to learn new things. From that day on, Sarah made a commitment to herself. She decided to treat every day as an opportunity, not an obligation. She started small. Instead of watching TV after work, she spent an hour learning a new skill. Instead of sleeping in on weekends, she went for a morning run. Instead of putting off her dreams, she took one small step towards them every day. It wasn't easy. There were days when the old lazy Sarah wanted to take over, but every time she felt like giving up, she remembered her friend's words. While you're making excuses, I'm making progress. Bit by bit, day by day, Sarah's life began to change. Her career took off. Her relationships improved. Her health got better. And most importantly, her self-respect grew. She was no longer the person who always had an excuse. She was now the person who always found a way. Sarah's story teaches an important lesson. Overcoming laziness isn't just about doing more. It's about becoming more. It's about growing into the person you're capable of being. Where has laziness held you back? What dreams have you put on hold because they seem too hard? What relationships have suffered because you were too lazy to put in the effort? More importantly, what could your life look like if you decided right here and now to kick laziness to the curb? How much could you achieve? How much could you grow? How much happier and more fulfilled could you be? The answer to those questions is in your hands. You have the power to change your life starting right now. But remember, it's not about making a drastic change overnight. It's about making a series of small, consistent choices every day. Choose to wake up early instead of sleeping in. Choose to read a book instead of scrolling through social media. Choose to have that difficult conversation instead of avoiding it. Choose to work on your dreams instead of just dreaming about them. These choices might seem small in the moment, but they add up. They compound. They create momentum. And before you know it, you're living a life that you once only dreamed of. You have to start. You have to take that first step. And then the next one, and the one after that. Success is not about taking one giant leap. It's about taking many small steps consistently. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but I've tried before. I've failed before. What makes this time any different? And to that, I say, the past does not equal the future. Just because you failed before doesn't mean you'll fail again. In fact, those failures are valuable lessons that can guide you to success. Remember, every successful person you admire has failed, probably more times than you can imagine. The difference is they didn't let those failures define them. They let those failures refine them. They used those failures as stepping stones to success. So if you've tried and failed before, congratulations. You're on the right track. Now get up, dust yourself off, and try again. But this time armed with the lessons from your past attempts. The laziness of the comfort zone. This is when we refuse to try new things or take risks because we're comfortable where we are. It's when we say, why rock the boat? Or better the devil you know. The comfort zone is where dreams go to die. Nothing great ever came from comfort zones. Every major breakthrough, every significant achievement, every life-changing discovery came from someone who was willing to step out of their comfort zone. Would we have electricity if Edison had stayed in his comfort zone? Would we have gone to the moon if NASA had played it safe? Would any great art have been created if artists only painted what they knew? The comfort zone might feel safe, but it's a trap. It's quicksand. The longer you stay, the deeper you sink and the harder it becomes to get out. That's why it's crucial to regularly push yourself out of your comfort zone. Try new things. Take calculated risks. Embrace the unknown. Now, I'm not saying you should be reckless. I'm saying you should be courageous. There's a big difference. Recklessness is jumping out of a plane without a parachute. Courage is jumping out of a plane with a parachute even though you're scared. So ask yourself, what's one thing you've always wanted to do but were too afraid to try? What's one step you could take today that would push you out of your comfort zone? It doesn't have to be big. Maybe it's signing up for a class you've always been interested in. Maybe it's having that conversation you've been putting off. Maybe it's applying for that job you think you're not qualified for. Whatever it is, do it, take that step, because here's the secret. The discomfort you feel when you step out of your comfort zone is the feeling of growth. It's the feeling of becoming more than you were yesterday. The laziness that is becoming increasingly common in our modern world. Information laziness. We live in an age where we have more information at our fingertips than ever before in human history. It's truly remarkable. With just a few taps on a smartphone, we can access the collective knowledge of humanity. Despite having all this information available, many of us have become lazy in how we consume and process it. We skim headlines instead of reading full articles. We watch 30-second video clips instead of in-depth documentaries. We rely on social media sound bites instead of diving deep into a subject. This information laziness is dangerous. It leads to shallow thinking, poor decision-making, and a superficial understanding of the world around us. It's like trying to build a house with a hammer and nothing else. Sure, you might be able to bang a few nails in, but you're never going to create anything substantial or lasting. To truly succeed in today's world, we need to cultivate a hunger for knowledge. We need to be willing to do the hard work of learning, of diving deep into subjects, of challenging our own assumptions and beliefs. It's not enough to know a little about a lot. We need to know a lot about the things that matter most to our goals and our lives. So how do we overcome this information laziness? Well, it starts with being intentional about our learning. Instead of passively consuming whatever content algorithms feed us, we need to actively seek out high-quality information. Read books, not just tweets. Listen to long-form podcasts, not just sound bites. Engage in deep conversations, not just small talk. Every day, learn something new that's directly related to your goals. It doesn't have to be big. Maybe it's a new vocabulary word in a language you're learning. Maybe it's a new feature in a software you use for work. Maybe it's a new fact about a subject you're passionate about. The key is consistency. Small bits of knowledge accumulated over time can lead to massive expertise. Remember, in the information age, knowledge isn't just power, it's survival. The most successful people in any field are often the ones who never stop learning, who are always hungry for new information and insights. They're the ones who fight against information laziness every single day. Idleness that can be particularly devastating. Emotional laziness, this is when we avoid dealing with our feelings, when we refuse to do the hard work of emotional growth and self-awareness. Emotional laziness can manifest in many ways. It's when we bottle up our feelings instead of expressing them healthily. It's when we avoid difficult conversations because they make us uncomfortable. It's when we repeat the same destructive patterns in our relationships because we're too lazy to examine our own behavior. Emotional intelligence is just as important as intellectual intelligence when it comes to success. In fact, some would argue it's even more important. You can be the smartest person in the room, but if you can't manage your emotions, if you can't empathize with others, if you can't handle stress and pressure, you're going to struggle. Overcoming emotional laziness requires courage. It requires a willingness to look at ourselves honestly, to confront our fears and insecurities, to have those difficult conversations. It's not easy, but it's necessary. Start by practicing self-reflection. At the end of each day, take a few minutes to think about your emotional responses. Were there moments when you overreacted, times when you avoided expressing how you truly felt? Situations where you could have shown more empathy? And don't just reflect, take action. If you realize you've hurt someone, apologize. If you've been avoiding a conversation, have it. If you've been neglecting your own emotional needs, address them. Remember, emotional growth, like any other form of growth, happens through consistent, intentional effort. The laziness of distraction. We live in a world that's constantly vying for our attention. Social media notifications, email alerts, breaking news updates. It's a never-ending stream of distractions. And it's so easy to give in to these distractions. It's so easy to spend hours scrolling through social media, or binge watching the latest TV show, or jumping from one YouTube video to another. But while these activities might feel good in the moment, they're often just a form of lazy escapism. Successful people in the world have one thing in common. They're masters of their own attention. They understand that focus is a superpower in a world of distractions. They know how to tune out the noise and concentrate on what truly matters. So how do we overcome the laziness of distraction? It starts with being intentional about our time and attention. Create designated periods for focused work, free from distractions. Turn off notifications on your phone. Use website blockers if you need to. Train yourself to resist the urge to constantly check your devices. But it's not just about eliminating distractions. It's also about being proactive with your attention. Instead of letting your mind wander aimlessly, direct it towards your goals. Use techniques like visualization to stay focused on what you want to achieve. Practice mindfulness to strengthen your ability to concentrate. Remember, your life is the sum of what you focus on. If you're constantly distracted by trivial things, you'll struggle to achieve anything significant. But if you can learn to focus your attention on what truly matters, there's no limit to what you can accomplish. The laziness of low standards. This is when we settle for less than we're capable of, when we say good enough instead of striving for excellence. The laziness of low standards is particularly dangerous because it's often disguised as contentment or humility. We tell ourselves, I shouldn't expect too much, or it's okay to be average. But here's the truth. Settling for less than you're capable of is a form of self-betrayal. You see, each of us has a unique set of talents and abilities. We have the potential to create, to innovate, to make a real difference in the world. But when we lower our standards, when we settle for mediocrity, we're not just cheating ourselves, we're cheating the world of our best contributions. So how do we overcome the laziness of low standards? It starts with raising our expectations of ourselves, of our work, of our relationships, of our lives. It means constantly asking, is this the best I can do? And if the answer is no, being willing to put in the extra effort to make it better. Now, this doesn't mean striving for perfection. Perfection is often the enemy of progress. What it means is committing to excellence in everything you do. Whether you're writing a report, cooking a meal, or having a conversation with a friend, give it your best effort. Make it a habit to go the extra mile, to add that extra touch of quality and care. When you raise your standards, you raise your life, you start attracting better opportunities, better relationships, better everything. Because the world responds to the standards you set for yourself. The laziness of fixed mindsets. This is when we believe our abilities are set in stone, that we can't learn new skills or change our personalities. It's when we say things like, I'm just not good at math, or I'm not a creative person. This kind of thinking is lazy because it gives us an excuse not to try, not to push ourselves outside our comfort zones. It's easier to believe we can't do something than to put in the effort to learn and improve. Your abilities are not fixed. Your brain is incredibly plastic, capable of forming new neural connections throughout your life. You can learn new skills, develop new talents, even change aspects of your personality if you're willing to put in the work. Overcoming the laziness of fixed mindsets requires adopting a growth mindset. This means believing that your abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. It means embracing challenges as opportunities to learn and grow, rather than threats to your self-image. So the next time you find yourself thinking, I can't do this, challenge that thought. Replace it with, I can't do this yet, but I can learn. And then take action. Take that class, read that book, practice that skill. Remember, every expert was once a beginner. The only difference is they didn't let their initial lack of skill stop them from trying and improving. Impatient laziness, this is when we want immediate results, when we are unwilling to put in the time and effort required for real, lasting success. We live in an age of instant gratification. We can get food delivered to our doorstep with a few taps on our phone. We can binge watch entire TV series in a weekend. We can connect with people across the world in seconds. And while these conveniences are wonderful in many ways, they've also conditioned us to expect everything to happen quickly and easily. Real success, meaningful achievement doesn't happen overnight. It's the result of consistent effort over time. It's the compound interest of small, daily actions. It's the harvest that comes after seasons of planning and tending. The laziness of impatience leads us to give up too soon, to abandon our goals when we don't see immediate results. It leads us to chase get-rich-quick schemes and fad diets instead of building sustainable wealth and health. It makes us jump from one thing to another, never giving ourselves the chance to truly master anything. So how do we overcome this laziness of impatience? It starts with cultivating a long-term perspective. Instead of focusing solely on immediate results, think about where you want to be in 5 years, in 10 years, in 2,000 years. Set big, ambitious goals, but then break them down into small, daily action. Fall in love with the process, not just the outcome. Find joy in the daily work, in the small improvements, in the gradual progress. Celebrate the small wins along the way. Remember, success is not a destination you reach. It's a way of traveling. Patience doesn't mean being passive. It means working consistently towards your goals, trusting in the process, and understanding that meaningful change takes time. It's about planting seeds today for a harvest you might not see for years to come. The laziness of blame. This is when we refuse to take responsibility for our lives. When we point fingers at others or circumstances for our problems and failure. So easy to fall into this trap. After all, there are always external factors we can point to. The economy is bad. Our boss is unfair. We didn't have the same opportunities as others. And while these factors are real and can certainly impact our lives, using them as excuses is a form of laziness. Blaming others or circumstances for our situation is comfortable. It absolves us of responsibility. It allows us to stay in our comfort zone to avoid the hard work of change and growth, but it's also incredibly disempowering. Because if we believe our life is entirely dictated by external forces, we give away our power to shape our own destiny. The truth is, while we can't always control what happens to us, we can always control how we respond. We can always choose our attitude, our actions, our efforts. And it's these choices made consistently over time that ultimately determine our success and happiness. Overcoming the laziness of blame requires a fundamental shift in mindset. Instead of asking, whose fault is this? Ask, what can I learn from this? Instead of saying, this happened to me, say, how can I respond to this in a way that moves me closer to my goals? Taking responsibility for your life isn't about beating yourself up for past mistakes or ignoring real challenges. It's about empowering yourself to create change. It's about focusing on what you can control rather than what you can't. So the next time you catch yourself blaming others or circumstances for your situation, pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, what's one thing I can do right now to improve this situation? Then do that thing. Because action, no matter how small, is the antidote to the paralysis of blame, a form of laziness that is particularly relevant in our interconnected world. The laziness of comparison. This is when we spend more time looking at what others are doing than focusing on our own path. It's when we use other successes as an excuse for our own actions, saying things like, well, I could never be as successful as them, so why even try? Social media has made this form of laziness easier than ever. We're constantly bombarded with highlight reels of others' lives. We see their successes, their achievements, their perfect Instagram moments, and it's so easy to fall into the trap of comparison, to feel like we're falling behind. Comparison is the thief of joy, and it's also the accomplice of laziness. When we're busy looking at others, we're not focusing on our own growth. When we're comparing our beginning to someone else's middle, we're giving ourselves an excuse not to start. Remember, success is not a zero-sum game. Someone else's success doesn't diminish the possibility of your own. In fact, if you look at it the right way, other successes can be inspiring, motivating. They can show you what's possible if you're willing to put in the work. So how do we overcome the laziness of comparison? It starts with focusing on your own journey. Set your own goals based on your values and aspirations, not on what others are doing. Measure your progress against where you were yesterday, not against where someone else is today. And here's a powerful shift in perspective. Instead of comparing yourself to others, compare yourself to your potential. Ask yourself, am I becoming the best version of myself? Am I making the most of my unique talents and opportunities? These questions will motivate you to focus on your own growth rather than getting distracted by what others are doing. Let's address one final form of laziness, the laziness of not dreaming big enough. This might seem counterintuitive. After all, isn't it lazy to dream of big things without putting in the work? But there's a different kind of laziness in setting small, safe goals that don't truly inspire or challenge us. When we set small goals, we only need to put in small efforts. We can stay comfortably within our current abilities and routines. But when we set big, audacious goals, we're forced to grow, to learn, to become more than we currently are. The great achievements in human history, the moon landing, the eradication of smallpox, the invention of the internet, these weren't accomplished by people setting small, safe goals. They were the result of big dreams backed by relentless effort. Now, I'm not saying you need to aim for changing the entire world, although if that's your goal, more power to you. But whatever your field, whatever your passion, I challenge you to dream bigger. Set goals that excite you, that scare you a little, that make you think, can I really do that? The size of your success is directly proportional to the size of your dreams and the intensity of your efforts to achieve them. When you set big goals, you tap into reserves of energy, creativity, and determination you didn't even know you had. So ask yourself, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? What impact do you want to have on the world? What legacy do you want to leave? Let your answers to these questions guide your goals. And remember, it's not just about the end result. The person you become in the pursuit of your big dreams is often the most valuable reward. The skills you develop, the mindset you cultivate, the relationships you build along the way. These are the true fruits of daring to dream big and working tirelessly to make those dreams a reality. Laziness isn't your natural state. It's a habit. And like any habit, it can be broken. You were born with an innate drive to grow, to learn, to achieve. That drive is still within you, waiting to be awakened. Every day, you have a choice. You can choose laziness, or you can choose action. You can choose comfort, or you can choose growth. You can choose to be a victim of circumstances, or you can choose to be the architect of your own life. The choice is yours. And it's a choice you make not once, but over and over again, in every moment of every day, in the small decisions and the big ones, in how you spend your time, your energy, your focus.